Hello, and thank you for coming back to this week's video. As you can see, I'm at home. I'm not traveling, and I won't be traveling till another month or so. The girls and I are actually planning on going to Montana, and we will be routing through a couple of states, going diagonally. I think Georgia, Tennessee, and a whole bunch of states going up that way. So if you're interested and to join the Go Squad for that trip, let me know. Send me a message and you can go ahead and join.
Travel the world, so just say yes. Choose to do whatever comes next. Just be brave and come along. I wanna do it all.
This week's video is going to be about land. A lot of RVers have, especially recently with this COVID thing, after what happened, that people were like outplaced and a lot of public lands were closed as a result. And people realized they were dependent on these dispersed camping places to be open. And during difficult situations, it might not be open. So you have to have some kind of a backup plan as to where you're going to be, or it's going to cost you money because you're going to have to go to an RV park if they take you, because during certain situations, like you saw with this pandemic thing, that there are a lot of parks didn't want to take you. There was a lot of different situations all across the country. So it's wise for people, those that want to choose to have a piece of land, that they own a piece of land so that they have a safe place to go back to and quarantine if something were to happen out there. Or it's always, for me, I always think it's great because it's a place for you to actually build roots in a community. And that's why I have a home. Because I like having a place where I can go back to, where I have my dentist and I have my doctors, and I can belong to the politics there if I need to, because we should all be self-governing. The problem is that a lot of this agenda of, that's Missy walking back there, this agenda of people just leaving the world and going into this traveling world is leaving us in not a good situation politically. And I will talk about that in a separate video that's coming up. But for today's video, I want to stay focused here. If you see me looking down, it's because I have notes. I don't belong to the teleprompter trends that there are right now in society and in our government. So I will be looking at my notes, because I don't do teleprompters. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, what exactly do you want? Do you just want a piece of land to park, or do you want a homestead, which is a place where you can be self-sustainable there? And self-sustainable, I want to quickly tell you, is not always what you think. You know, I might be a vegetarian and I might want to have a homestead. Doesn't mean it's not a homestead because I don't have a cow or a goat there. I'm sustainable because I can grow my own plants and my own plants and vegetables there. That's how I sustain myself. I can harvest water, and I can also sustain myself by growing herbs that are medicinal and things like that. So don't think that it's just going to be a place where you're going to have chickens and pigs and cows because you're going to drink the milk. You might not be that kind of a person. You might have an almond tree and be able to have almond milk or whatever. So first you have to decide what you want. Now, if you are going to go with just a piece of land, let me just keep you with the reality that there is going to be maintenance. And we'll get into that topic in a moment. And I know, because I have 3 acres here and I live alone right now. So I have to not only work, because I'm not retired yet, but I also have to maintain this property. And I'm just going to give you right out what it costs here in Florida to have somebody come out and mow 1 acre of grass for you. 1 acre of grass 3 years ago, it's probably more now. 1 acre of grass is $65, okay? 3 acres of grass is going to be $80. But when I was traveling out west and I had my grass mowed during the months that I was gone, I didn't have a fence. And now I have a fence all around the property. When you have barriers like that, it's more liability on those that are cutting your grass. So they might charge you more because it's more liability that they're under. And you risk also that you're not at the property and somebody can break your fence. So that's why for me, I mostly travel on a monthly basis. So you really have to decide what you want to do. What is it that you want? Do you want an established homestead already? Or do you just want to buy a piece of land and do it yourself? Or maybe you aren't even interested in being self-sustainable. You just want to live and travel, which is fine. But remember, with all of that comes some maintenance, and we'll talk about that now. So we have to talk about traveling, and that's what we're going to get to here. What you have to think, what happens to your place when you travel, like I do. I know that if I travel during certain times of the year, I don't have to worry about my property other than the weeds. That's about it. But certain times of the year during the summer, it's difficult for me because we have a lot of rain here. And I have prairie grass here that grows like incredible. So for me, I have to be here, or somebody's got to be maintaining my property, because when I come back, it's just going to look like an abandoned property. Before you go out and buy, you have to decide what you're going to do. And we'll talk about those things in a few minutes. So you should probably be writing all of this stuff down in a notebook. Like, okay, I want this. And what do I want? I wanted this and I want this. Like another thing I want to tell you is like these kind of things we're going to talk about now, which, do you have children? Are your children going to go to public school or whatever school? You have to know how far, because a lot of these places where you can park an RV, have land, they're way out of the boundaries and jurisdictions of normal communities and homes. And you might be like 20 something miles away from a store or a hospital or even the police. So you have to think about those things as well, because you're going to be well out of the way of those places. And you have to realize, if you are with children and something happens to one of your children, you're going to be 22 miles away from a hospital or those kind of things. So you have to keep in mind those kind of things are going to affect you as well as shopping. For me, I mean, I'm not too far. I'm about 6 miles one way and I'm about 13 miles another way to major stores. I have a freezer, so a lot of things I keep in my freezer. I have a big refrigerator, and I also know, and I've taught myself how to be sustainable. Being in an RV is another way that teaches you how to live with less and go longer, and what to do with your items so you can go longer. So I can be possibly around 2 weeks at the most. I mean, only because I like fresh and I'm not growing anything here right now. But last year when I had my garden was up and active, I didn't hardly have to go to the store, maybe for a couple of fruits and things like that, like bananas I'm not growing, apples I'm not growing, and grapes I'm not growing. So those kind of things I was interested in. But for my tomatoes and my peppers and my lettuces, I was getting them from my garden. So I didn't really have to go out as much. Another thing that you also want to determine before you buy your property is, what kind of weather are you willing to deal with? Remember, you're going to be living there in an RV. So do you want to be up north where the winters are cold during the time that you're at home, you're parked there? Or do you want to be someplace where it's warm? That's going to make a big difference for you. It's also going to make a huge difference for you on your maintenance of your property, is the weather as well. We're going to segue into that right now. So there are maintenance needs on your property. Yes, you just don't buy a piece of land and you go in and out and travel. There is going to be things that you have to do, unless you're out in the woods. But if you're in an RV, unless you're in a van and you have a low vehicle, you might not have as much maintenance. If you're out in the woods, you can just leave it out the way that it is. But there's always going to be cleaning around the property, around the area where you park. So if you have trees above you and this and that and whatever, there's always going to be some cleaning up of the area. So you also have to determine if you want to spend money to have water there, if you want to be able to hook up to electric when you come back. These are things you're going to have to decide. And these are not things that you have to do right now. This can be stuff that you do over time. So if you have a big enough water tank where you can go for 2 weeks on your property, it's certainly going to help you, especially if you're 20 miles away from a dump station or a place to collect water. This can be something where you can gradually save money for and pay out right into the future. So maybe your first year, you're going out and getting water, you're harvesting on your property as well when it rains. And now you're able to have water for 2 weeks, and then you go out and you go dump and you get your water from somewhere. So that's certainly something you can do. And as you move further along over the years, you can start saving money and start paying for all of the utilities that you need, paying them outright. Like you might want to have like a place to dump, a sewer system where you can dump there. That might cost some money. So you're going to save 1 year, you're going to save your money towards that. Another year for electric, you want to be able to come back and have some electric. So it's a nice process where you can do it gradually if you don't have the funds to do it outright right away. So with all that as well, remember that you're going to be on cell coverage a lot in a lot of these places. And I just want to talk a little bit about one of these places, these kind of places, because a lot of these places are really out in the deep woods, and you'll have like a road, and then you'll turn into the road, and if you're not maintaining that road into your property, it's going to get closed up with woods and grass and trees really quickly. And when I was traveling looking for a piece of property, I saw many, many places like that where there was a lot of maintenance. And you might, from your turn from the road, you might actually have to travel a half mile to a mile to get to your property into the woods. That means that you have to maintain that. Or you have to find out if the city is going to maintain that because of your property taxes there. You will have to do the research to find out as well. So if you are going to have to be mowing 1.5 acres, you have to keep that in mind, that that's something that you have to do. And who is going to do that for you when you get back? You don't want your property to be closed in when you drive back from all of the trees, overhanging tree vines and stuff like that. So those are things that you have to look into when you buy a property, to remember that there's going to be maintenance that you might have to do there in order for you to get in and out of the property. Because of this maintenance that you are ultimately going to have to do having a property, you will need to have some tools. And that means that if you're buying land, you'll have to have some type of gardening type tools, like pruners to cut trees like that, or maybe chainsaw to cut some trees or things like that. And you'll have to also determine where you're going to store those when you travel. One choice is to actually put them into a warehouse type of facility where you keep those items there when you are not using them, and you can just store them there. But you will need equipment. You'll also need a lawnmower if you have to be in charge of cutting this. Remember what I told you, what the cost is of having somebody come out to mow your grass. And you should have a trusted source, because if you are out in the woods and there is no one around you, and you are paying somebody to come out and mow your grass while you're traveling your road in, how are you going to know that they are going to do it? Because every month they're going to call you and say, we're mowing your grass tomorrow, and you're going to send them the check without knowing that they're actually doing it. And surprise, surprise, you come back 4 months later and find out that they had not done it. Yes, you can regain your money because you can probably bring them to court or threaten them. But in the process of all of that, how do you get into your property? So those are things that you have to remember could happen when you buy a property like this. So definitely having a mower, and consider having a place where you can store all this stuff. Now, you can also purchase a shed and put a shed on your property as well, so that you can store your items. But remember that you also run the risk of people coming there and stealing your items. There's also the chances of animals getting into your sheds, and, rats and rodents and things like that. So unless you were able to put up some kind of a security camera there, if you were able to access internet service, there's also wireless cameras, and you can hook up there to the property as well. So these are just some ideas that I'm throwing at you. It's not that it can't be done, it can, but with all of it, it comes a lot of planning for these kind of things. It's not just like, oh, we're going to buy a piece of land. Well, you're going to soon find out that it's not as easy and not freeing as you think that it is, because with that, things come into play here. Let's talk about the security on the property. And we talked about having maybe some wireless cameras if we're able to tap into internet, or we're able to maybe leave behind some sort of a hotspot where we're able to watch our property from some cameras or not. You have some options there as well, because if you decide to put up a carport to keep your RV parked under, you also have the option of putting up side panels on this carport so that you can close in your carport during the time that you're gone. But remember, you still run the risk of somebody coming in and breaking into your property, and you also have the risk of rodents and things like that. But there are rodent pest sonar machines. I know I have one in my garage, and I've never had a rodent here at all. So those are things you might want to look into and purchase when you're gone. We talked about the wireless cameras that you can maybe have like some hotspot to be able to watch your property during the time that you're gone. Now, another thing I want to talk about, this gets me super excited because we're going to talk about the GUN right now. It really pains me when I watch a lot of people who don't know anything about GUNs, because the problem with this is there's a lot of people in this country who live like I do in rural areas, and some people really do live in the deep woods or the mountains. And you should have a GUN in those places, and most people do, because they understand that they are too far away from a police station. By the time a police officer gets to your house, I mean, you are done for already. So when you live in places like this, you need to have a GUN, because you are going to be your first line of defense if somebody comes and breaks into your property, or if you are being attacked by some kind of a wild animal. And in some of these places, there are wild animals, there are bears, and there are wild hogs and things like that. Especially if you have children out there, you want to have protection to protect yourself. So you will have to decide whether you are going to have a rifle or one of the hand ones. And you're going to have to also get licensed for that. And the property that you choose, you'll have to find out if the state that you're purchasing in allows you to have one in the first place. So those are things that you're going to have to find out as well. So the other thing that we're also going to think about is fence, and having a fence so we're able to close off our property and make it more difficult for people to get in. Because once there's a fence up, they don't know if you're there. They don't know if you're inside. They don't know what's going on if you just went out for a day or not, unless they're watching you. So having a fence, of course, is another security method that you can have. And this is something that you don't have to have right away, but it's something that you can work towards the future and do it yourself and save up the money to do it yourself. There's fences that you can put up very easily using T-posts. I mean, of course, they're easy to remove and people could steal them from you. But there's the chance also that you can put it up very cheaply and quickly with T-posts. If you eventually put up utilities in your land, you'll also want to secure those as well, because anybody can come there and start dumping in your sewer, and they can start stealing your electric or coming there and stealing your water. So another option is to build some type of a cage system where you're covering up your pump, your water pump, and your electrical outlets and things like that. So certainly you're going to want to think about these things before you have them put up, because if you want to build one cage and have them all in the same area so that you can just have one cage built to fence all of those things in. The cage means it's like fenced around, but it's also got the cover on top. So those are certainly things that you're going to want to think about when you're on the property. And when you're leaving, instead of having 3 different cages, like one over there for the pump and one over here for the sewer, you might want to think about the positioning of where all your utilities are going to be so that you can have them all in one place, caged up in one particular area. So when you're there, you just have to remove the one cage. And when you get back, or when you leave, you just put up the one cage. And there's also the situation of a garden. If you're going to be growing a garden there as well, what's going to happen to your garden when you're gone? So fencing up your garden is another smart idea to keep away, people from coming on there, treading up, walking and driving up on it, as well as any wild animals from getting into your garden as well. Another option that we have also is if we have neighbors that are willing to give their time, and we're able to exchange with them our time as well with their time. So when they travel, you are able to watch their property, and when you travel, they're able to watch your property. The exchange of time is another great option with your neighbors, but you won't know that until you actually move in, or even if you don't even know how far your neighbors are, if they're even willing to do something like that. So that's not something that you can pre-plan in advance, because you just don't know if people are willing to do that. And what if they move away and new people move in? They might not be able to do that. So, but there's certainly, I mean, if you know a piece of land, and or you're going to move in nearby to somebody who's willing to do that with you, that's a big plus for you, because you know that somebody's going to be watching your property. Or what about family members? If you're in an area where there's family who can come and visit your property and check on it every once in a while, that's certainly something else that is a wonderful thing that people will do for you. The other option also, and there's several websites out there that give you the possibility of allowing people to come on your property and watch the property for you. They're called groundskeepers. And many of them live in their RVs, and they're people like you who would like to own land, but they choose not to, or don't want to, or they need to move around a lot. But they're willing to sit in one spot for 3 to 4 months. Maybe they have writing a book, and they have projects and things that they want to do, and they just want to stay in one spot for a while. And those are the kind of websites you can go to and look for people like that. And you will probably want to give them access to some utilities on the property, since they're watching it for you. Most of them, you don't have to pay them unless there's going to be some agreement with them cutting the grass or mower and things like that. But make sure, if you're going to be allowing them to use your tools and your things, that these are trustworthy people. Get references to make sure that that these people have been doing a good job in the past for others. You want people that have been experienced already if they're going to be using your items. Now we have to get to all of this work that we have on our property. And it's always great because we can also have neighbors help us with the property, and we also provide help to them when they need it in the maintenance of the property. We can also rent some space on our property. If our property is big enough, there's another possibility. You can maybe rent it to another RVer who wants to come and park there and also wants to use the utilities. You're willing to offer them utilities as well. And in exchange, you can have them help you maintain the property or watch the property for you. So we talked about the groundskeeper. That's basically the same thing, but in this situation, this person actually pays you rent. That's another possibility. I know there's people out there that are willing to do it, where maybe an RV park will cost them, in that area, might be $500 a month, but you can rent the space out to them for $200 if they watch your property and mow your grass. So a lot of people would be willing to do things like that, because they're going to be out in the woods and they're not going to be at some RV park with rules and regulations. And that's how they want to be. They want to be out camping. And then, of course, if you have friends that are traveling in the area, you can always offer them your space and they can come and watch it for you, which is a wonderful thing. That's pretty much it. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand there's a lot of work involved. As you can see from some of the clips in this video of me working here on the property, every year I have a certain amount of chores that I have to get done in order to maintain this property, and I do it myself. Number one, because it gets me out, it gets me moving, and I enjoy my property, and I'm grateful for it every time that I'm outside. And it's a way for me to save money as well. In other words, it wouldn't cost me as much if I had people coming here and mowing my grass for $80 every 2 weeks, because in Florida the grass grows a lot, and especially during the rainy season, I would be spending like $200 a month just on having people come here and mow my grass. And they never do such a great job. And I love the smell of cutting the grass when it's cut, and it just smells really nice. There's always things that we have to look at. Everything seems beautiful and rosy from the outside, but when we really sit down and think about those things, we also have to remember that we also have to take care of those things that God blesses us with. So it's wonderful that you want to buy a piece of land and maybe have a place of your own, but remember that you also have responsibilities that come with those things as well. And some people choose the RV lifestyle because they don't want those kind of responsibilities. So if you're that kind of a person, think twice before you get involved in something like this, because it's not just about buying a piece of property and that's it, you're there. But choosing wisely first will limit a lot of these things that I talked about. A lot of these things will be limited then if you choose wisely in the first place. So I thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful for some of you. If you like these kind of videos, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day. God bless. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Have you ever dreamed of traveling but don't necessarily want to be alone? Well, now you can join the Ghost Squad Caravans. It's not part of a club, but of a nomadic community where uncommitted bonds are formed, where cliques with clubs can form and introverts or newbies to the group can feel left out. We are different. By connecting with other women during your travels, you can enjoy the uncommitted lifestyle that nomadic traveling provides. With an opportunity for you to fellowship, explore, share adventure, and sit with good company, Ghost Squad Caravans are here to give you a place within a space. This is your life, your choice. Make it your best season yet. We provide emergency contact, mentoring, support, group connection, and the ability to share those connections. Ability for you to locate your pals and connect with new ones. Encourage, inspire, but most of all to love with godly love within the nomadic lifestyle.